guys, welcome back. My name is Becca and I'm here with, how do I say this? I'm here with the runners-up to my favorites of 2018. These are just books that I really loved when I read them last year. And they didn't quite make my favorites list, but they're still books I really want to talk about. I have 12 here, so let's get talking. So the first book I have here is a really controversial one because a lot of people really didn't like this. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad I enjoyed it. But I understand why people didn't like it, and that is A Quarterfrost and Starlight by Sarah J. Maas. This is the novella that bridges the first trilogy, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin, and then the next trilogy, which I don't know what they're going to be called. But this is just a little novella that gives you more Feyre and Rhysand and the rest of the characters before you move on to the next trilogy. It really delves into what is happening after the events of Court of Wings and Ruin. So that was something I really liked to see. Yes, not a lot happens. I didn't expect anything to really happen because it's a novella. The last novella that Sarah J. Maas had was Tower of Dawn, and that turned into a full-fledged novel, which is why you got so much out of that. I mean, it was like a 700-page book. It's not a novella anymore. This is a novella. And again, I just expected to see more of my characters, see what's happening after the events of the last book. This is during, I think it's called Yulemas, or the winter solstice. So they're celebrating, and they're coming together, and it's just, I really enjoyed this. I know why a lot of people didn't, and I completely understand it, but I enjoyed it. So, yeah, this is definitely one that I'm glad that I picked up. And then I have And I Darken by Kiersten White. By the way, I wanted to say, none of these are in any particular order. They're not even any order, like, as I read them. I didn't rank them. I did rank my favorites, that video will be coming. I will be doing that one probably tomorrow and posting that sometime during January. I don't know when. But this one is not ranked. It's not in any particular order. I just had a lot of books that I really wanted to talk about that didn't make my favorites list. Okay, back to And I Darken by Kiersten White. This is a brutal reimagining or retelling of Vlad the Impaler, where Vlad is a female, and it's all about her and her brother making their way through, like, the Ottoman Empire and struggling, you know, to get through what's going on. There's a lot of political intrigue, and I really enjoy, like, the family-esque nature of this. Like, family is a thing that I really enjoyed in this, even if it wasn't, like, the greatest thing. I don't know how to say this without spoiling anything, but Lada and Radu, Lada, who is the female version of Vlad the Impaler, and Radu is her brother, they don't always necessarily get along, but I still really love them, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the next book with them, because I've heard it gets better, and I really enjoyed this, and this was definitely brutal and dark, and wow. I didn't know if I would like this. I picked it up just hoping I would. I heard really good things about it. I've been hearing good things about this for years. The last book just finally came out, and I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna pick it up and see if I like it, and I loved it. So I can't wait to read the sequel, because this was really good. Next up we have Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. This is Anastasia in space. This is a retelling of Anastasia in space. all you need to know going into this. If you already know the story of Anastasia, you're good. It's just about a princess who, what's it called? Her family is killed and she loses her memories, and she finds her way to this orphanage. I don't know, or that's the actual Anastasia. She is picked up, how do I say this, by this, like, crew and taken in, and she becomes one of them, and she travels space, and it's just so good. I suck at synopses, you guys know this, so I really enjoyed this. I really enjoyed Ashley Preston's Geekerella, so that was amazing. That's a, like, modern Cinderella retelling. But this one spoke to me, not for the sci-fi elements. I am not a huge fan of sci-fi, but I love Anastasia. And I was really looking forward to this. I listened to this on audiobook, and I quite enjoyed the audiobook of it. So I can't wait for the sequel, because that's gonna be so good. I'm excited for that. And I just really enjoyed this. That ending, though, killed me. I don't know what's gonna happen in Soul of Swords, which is the sequel, but with that ending, it better be good. Oh my god, that ending, it's gonna get cray-cray in the sequel, but I can't wait for it. Next up I have Love and Luck by Jenna Evans Welch. This is a sequel to Love and Gelato. This one follows Addie, who is the best friend of the main character from the first book, and Addie is traveling Ireland with her brother, and a friend he just met, pretty much. And this is just a road trip book in Ireland, which was great. I loved it. I listened to the audiobook of this one as well, and I laughed so hard. I don't remember everything that happens in this book, but I remember laughing throughout it. It was just so good. Again, the sense of family in this was fantastic. This one doesn't necessarily, like, the first one was definitely, like, romance with a hint of, like, you get, like, a subtleness of the family themes. With this one, it's more family, and then you get that hint of romance as well. And I like this one, I think, a little bit more than the first one. It was just, I really enjoyed this one, and I really enjoyed Addie as the main character, and her brother, and then the romance she was having. Yes, it wasn't, like, the forefront of this book. That's mostly, like, the family theme, but it was just so good. I highly recommend this series. I don't know how many books are going to be in this, but Love and Gelato and Love and Luck are two really great, fantastic books. And I just remember reading Love and Gelato in 2017, I believe, and it was the very end. It was like the tail end of 2017. I read Love and Gelato, and I needed that book at that time. And then reading this one and just loving it even more than the first one, it was a great time, and it was fantastic, and I highly recommend these. Next up, I have Starry Eyes by Jen Bennett. I really loved Alex Approximately when that came out. That was a You've Got Mail inspired young adult novel, also by Jen Bennett. This one this one was so much better than that. Even though I loved Alex Approximately, I love this one even more. This one follows two characters who used to be best friends. Something happens in the past, and they become enemies. They avoid each other at any chance they have, and they just can't stand each other. You don't know why. You don't know what happened. Then they decide to go on this camping trip. Like, they don't decide to go together, but their friends all go, and so they're invited, and they end up having to be, on this camping trip together. But the two of them do get stranded in the woods together, and now they're stuck having to talk to each other, and that's when you like really figure out what happened. And it was just so good. I love this so much. I cried so hard, but this was so fantastic. The romance, the friendship between them, the oh my god, the camping, like I love the use of pictures in this book. I just really, really loved it. And I love Jen Bennett. And now I have another book by Jen Bennett that I got for Christmas, which is An Anatomical Shape of a Heart. Is that what it's called? Something like that. I have that one. I think that's her debut novel. So I really want to read that. And then she's coming out with Serious Moonlight, I think in like March or April, something like that. And I am so excited to read that one. I can't wait. I love Jen Bennett as an author, and her books just, I click with them, and they make me feel, and I just love it. And I really highly, highly recommend this book. If you don't pick up anything else by Jen Bennett, pick up this one. This one was just so fantastic. Next up, I have the only nonfiction book I have ever been able to read, and I actually really enjoyed it. And that is Talking as Fast as I Can by Lauren Graham. This is her autobiography, and I listened to the audiobook as well as reading it physically. If you do end up reading this, I do suggest you listen to the audiobook, but I also suggest that you pick up the physical copy so you can look at the pictures. Because she does have pictures of her, like, of her time in, like, the plays she's been in, her, just anything she's talking about, she pretty much has a picture for it. And I really enjoyed this. I enjoyed learning about her past and learning about what happened with each of her, oh my god, like each of the things she's been in, Gilmore Girls, A Year in Life, Parenthood, all the plays she's been in. I just really enjoyed learning more about her, and I am so glad I read this. At first, it was hard for me to get into, just because I think I was listening to the audiobook, I was listening at too much of a speed, like I think I was listening at like double speed, and you don't get too much of the humor if you listen to it too fast. You need to like kind of slow it down, at least for me, so I can get all those zings that she has. So good. I highly suggest listening to this or reading it. It was fantastic. Next up, I have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. The only Jay Kristoff book I've ever read that he alone has written. I have read the entire Illuminae Files trilogy that he co-writes with Amy Kaufman. I really, really enjoyed those. I have been trying to read this for years. I really wanted to because it's all about this girl who becomes an assassin. Mia loses her family, and it's all because of the what's it called, like the council and stuff like that. Like, they took her family from her. They murdered her father in front of her, and then they took away her mother and her brother. And so she wants revenge. And so she joins the Red Church to become an assassin, to learn the art of killing so she can take her revenge on them. And I really enjoyed this. This is very adult. His sex scenes, I did not think would be as good as they were. Holy shit. This man can write a sex scene. Just saying. I really enjoyed this. I will say, the like notes he has on the bottom were ones that I skipped. I kind of want to go back and read this again and try not to skip those, but I just felt like I was disjointed from the story. They were just two separate things for me, and I couldn't like read them and then like get right back into the story. took that away from me, but I do want to try and read this again while looking at the notes, because I have tried to read some of them, and some of them were really funny, but I just felt like it was distracting me from the actual book. I have tried to read the sequel. For some reason, I can't get into it. I think I got like over 50 pages in, and I'm just not enjoying it as much as I was this one. Though I will say, this one took me quite a bit to get into, so that might be the same thing with God's Grave, but I'm just not getting into it. Also, don't listen to the audiobook. The audiobook for this is crap. The narrator is just shit. He's awful. Don't listen to the audiobook. Not if you want to read this. But I feel like I'm one of the last people to read this, so you probably already read it, so... But yeah, it was fantastic. Very adult, very graphic, but so good. This was so good. There we go again, dropping more books. I caught them this time, so, ha. Okay, just a few more books. We have Listen to Your Heart by Casey West. My favorite Casey West book. Or at least one of them. This one was just so fantastic. I'm going to keep saying that about all these books because these are all 4 and 5 star reads for me that I absolutely loved in 2018. But again, they didn't make my favorites. I wish they did. This one almost did. This one almost made the cut. It was so close, but it didn't. This is about a girl who joins this podcast class in school. She doesn't want to. It's definitely out of her comfort zone. She doesn't feel, she doesn't really want to speak to people, and she doesn't listen to podcasts, so she doesn't get this. But her best friend really wants her to take this class with her, so she ends up taking it. And she ends up becoming the host for the podcast, which is the one thing our main character does not want. At all. Her best friend really wanted it, but didn't happen. So now our main character is giving advice to people at her school that call in. And she finds that she is actually pretty good at it. There's also a bit of a romance in this that I absolutely loved. The romance, so her best friend has a crush on this guy. Huge crush on this guy. And our main character, I can't remember her name. Well, I can't. Kate. Kate is just like, okay. So she helps her best friend trying to get with this guy. She's trying to set them up a little bit, trying to help her best friend out. And while doing that, kind of falls for him as well. Which really can screw with the friendship. I loved this book. I really wanted it to make my favorites. It didn't, but it just about did. This was literally the one that I wanted on my favorites list so badly. But if I did, it'd be 16 instead of 15, so couldn't let that happen. But yeah, this was just fantastic, and I'm definitely due for a reread of this very soon. Next up, I have To Kill a Kingdom by Alexander Christo. Another one that could have made my favorites. It was really close. This was definitely in my favorites list in the beginning of the year when I read this, but it's been bumped down quite a bit. This one is a dark, brutal retelling of Little Mermaid with sirens. It's about our princess, Lyra, or Lyra, however you want to say it. She's like the most lethal siren there is, pretty much. And she needs, what's it called? I can't remember how this goes. If I remember correctly, every year for her birthday, she takes a heart. I can't remember why they take a heart. But, Lyra, I call her Lyra. Lyra takes, like, you can take any male heart, like, you can take any heart you want, but Lyra takes the hearts of princes, and, what's her name? She becomes, is it the Princess Bane, or something like that? And she takes a heart too early, So her mother, the Sea Queen, gets really pissed off about it and turns her human and tells her that she needs to get the heart of a Prince Elian, who is out to kill Lyra when he couldn't find her. He wants to kill the Prince's Bane so badly, though he doesn't know it's Lyra. Not yet. And if she doesn't deliver his heart to her mother, she'll remain a human forever. This was so good. I really enjoyed this. I have heard some people not really like it, but I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. And I really liked the brutal nature. I do understand that the ending isn't for everybody, but I quite enjoyed it. And I'm glad that I picked this up, because this was... I have had the worst luck with mermaid books. They just haven't been good in my opinion. But this one was a favorite, for sure. 3 more books. Next up, I have The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. How can I not put this on this list? I wanted to put it on my favorites list, but the problem is that I couldn't remember much about it. I remember this is about Vasya, our main character from the first book. This is a sequel to The Bear and the Nightingale. And this is about Vasya leaving her home and traveling out into like the main city. She's traveling Russia, pretty much. And you still get a lot of like Vasya and Morosko, who I love. Oh my god, I cannot wait for Winter the Witch. And I know you get a little bit more of her family, like the characters you didn't really get too much in the first book, you get more of in this book. I can't remember too much about it though. I do remember I loved it. I do remember I gave this 5 stars. But I don't remember a lot of what happened. It's just like, I can remember certain things, but I can't remember everything. So that's why it didn't make my favorites. It was on the list, but I had to take it off because I couldn't remember too much about it. But this is the sequel to The Bear and the Nightingale, and I loved The Bear and the Nightingale. That was like my favorite book of last year, of 2017. But this was still really good from what I can remember. And from what I know I rated it, this was still really, really great. I just can't remember too much about it. Alright. Next up we have Made You Up by Francesca Zappia. Francesca Zappia wrote Eliza and Her Monsters, which I really, really loved. I think that was also my favorites list of 2017. And this, I believe, is her debut novel, if I remember correctly. I'm not entirely sure. Oh well, I don't know. Was this... No, I think this is before Eliza and Her Monsters, but I'm not entirely sure. This one's about a girl who suffers from delusions. She, when she's really young, she sees this boy in like a grocery store or something, and they get to talking, and she really likes him, and then her mom is like really pissed because she's having another incident. The boy doesn't exist. So, our main character, Alex, she struggles with delusions, and as she grows up, she has to fight, with, how do I say this? She has a battle every day of like what's real and what's not, and she really doesn't want so many people to know that she suffers from these delusions, so she's trying to hide it from people. And when she goes to this new high school, or something like that, when she goes to high school, something like that, she meets this boy in one of her classes. And that boy is the boy from the grocery store. And now she's really struggling. Is he real, or is he fake? What's happening? Am I having another delusion? What is happening? And from what I've heard because I am not someone who knows so much about mental illness and mental health, from what I have heard from people I trust, this was a good representation I believe it's schizophrenia. I'm not entirely sure. I read this really early in the year. I loved it, I can tell you that. I still remember a little bit of the plot, and I remember the ending. This book tore my heart out. This was so good. And I definitely want to reread this and Eliza and Her Monsters. Francesca Zappia is another author that I think will be a continued favorite of mine, just from these two books alone. I can't wait to see what else she comes up with, because the two of her books that I have read have been fantastic. So, the last book on this list was the first book I read in 2018, and that is After You by Jojo Moyes. This is the sequel to Me Before You. It follows Louisa as she's struggling with the events that happened in Me Before You. She's just struggling to move on, and she gets her own flat. She gets a dead-end job, and I think, if I'm pretty sure, because again, this is the first book I read last year, I'm pretty sure she falls off her balcony or falls off her building and like breaks her, she breaks something. Is it, wait, I found the, and of course she thinks she's paralyzed right when she when she falls. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she's on her balcony. And she falls. Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure she breaks her leg or something like that. And then she's going to this like support group, and she meets Sam, who's a paramedic, and he was there when she fell. Man. I thought I wouldn't like this, okay? I thought after Me Before You, this is something I wouldn't like at all, because of everything that happened in Me Before You. This was gonna be so different. This was just not something I really wanted. And then I read it, and I loved it. I love this so much. I am now currently reading, for my first book of 2019, I am reading Still Me, the third book in the series, because I wanted to recreate what happened with this one. We're like 8 days in, I haven't finished it yet. It's not because of the book, it's just because I'm in kind of a slump again. Great. But I loved this book. I loved all the characters. There's also a character that comes in, I can't remember her name, but this girl arrives at Luisa's door and claims she is Will's daughter. And Luisa has to take care of her. I really love this. This was just fantastic. I can remember so much of what happened, even though I read this at the very beginning of last year. I can't wait to see how Still Me goes, even though I'm only 20 pages in. Somebody kill me. But yeah, I really wanted to talk about all these books because they're all books that I really loved. Even though they didn't make my favorites list. I really wanted some of them to. And to be honest, I'm always going to call Listen to Your Heart a favorite of mine, even if I didn't keep it on the list. And I'm surprised with what replaced it. I really am. But yeah, you'll see that list soon. I will hopefully be filming that tomorrow, and we'll posting that sometime this month. With this one, they're gonna be up around roughly around the same time. But believe me, I have no clue when that's gonna be. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If any of these were books that you've read and really loved, let me know down below. What are some of your favorites of last year? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again with another video. Bye. Happy reading.